What's going on, everybody? Thank you guys so much for watching the show. Wanted to talk to you about our friends over at Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching sports. This app is really easy to use. You just pick more or less on a few player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your cash on a single lineup. Best of all, Prize Picks will give you $50 when you play your first $5 lineup. Win or lose, you'll get $50 for playing. Use the promo code PFF and download the app now. In the first round, at number 15 overall, they took Jalen Walker, the linebacker/edge from Georgia. And then later in the first round, they gave up a future first to trade up from 46 all the way to 26. They jumped 20 spots to take James Pierce Jr., the edge rusher from Tennessee. Third round, they got, in my opinion, quite the steal in Xavier Watts, the safety from Notre Dame. Fourth round, Billy Bowman Jr., the safety from Oklahoma. More of a slot defender than necessarily just a safety. So I think that was great value as well. And then Jack Nelson, the offensive tackle from Wisconsin, there in the seventh round. What do we think of the Falcons draft here, Dalton?
I think they had one goal with this defense, and that was to find playmakers. And that's the theme, I think, with those first four guys. When you talk about Jalen Walker in limited reps as a pass rusher, but a really good one, 12 sacks over the last 2 years and a 17% pass rush win rate this past year. James Pierce Jr. the last 2 years, 107 pressures, 21 sacks, one of the best pass rushers in college football down there at Tennessee. And then you've got Watts and Bowman, and you mentioned it, getting Watts at the 96 overall pick when I had him as a top 40 player on my board, I think is an absolute steal. It actually makes up for at least a little bit of that surplus value that they lost in the trade, in the Pierce trade, sending next year's first round pick to the Rams. So you get those two guys who've combined for 21 interceptions over the last 2 years. And when you think about all those numbers, I think that's the theme of this Falcons defense. We don't force the action enough. We don't disrupt quarterbacks enough. We don't get to the football enough in the secondary. They're trying to change that mentality because right now their defense, it's bend but don't break. They had the second worst pass rush grade in the league last year. And the strategy I find interesting, especially how highly they value Pierce to give that up for him to go up. I believe it was from 46 to 26 to go get him. We had this conversation on draft night. They must have felt like they were probably going to take Pierce at number 15. And then they were surprised that Walker was there. So they got Walker and Pierce. And on their board, it's possible that they got two of their top 15 players. So I think for them, you have to consider this draft a success. They got pass rush help. They got help in the secondary. Maybe could have attacked corner instead of safety a second time. But I think they can survive with what they have there. And especially with all the zone defense that Raheem Morris plays, it's really going to help them more so to have Walker. They already have Caden Ellis, who's kind of a similar player at linebacker, gets a lot done in the pass rush. To get Pierce, to get Braylon Trice healthy. If this team has a better pass rush, they have a lot better chance of stopping opponents, right? And they just couldn't do that often enough because there was too many quarterbacks and too many clean pockets.
Oh, yeah, I agree with everything that you said there. It's interesting looking at this draft. I forgot to say at the top, but PFF staff gave this an A- for the draft that they had, and that includes the wheeling and dealing of the first-round pick and then getting the third-round pick back, jumping up, being able to do that. Because it's hard to not look at this roster and think, wow, or this draft haul, and say, wow, this team got a lot better on the defense side of the football in the ways that they needed to get better. They needed to get more dynamic in the secondary. They get two players who are ball hawks in the secondary in Billy Bowman Jr. and Xavier Watts. They needed to get more explosive on the edge. They absolutely did with James Pierce Jr. And then Jalen Walker, it's sort of hard to judge this one because even though I don't know where his home base is going to be in the NFL, it feels like it's going to be at edge rusher for the Falcons. There's another guy who brings a lot of speed to power to his game. He really just hasn't played as a true edge rusher a lot, mainly because he's not built like one. And Georgia, I think, just said, wow, this is such a good football player. We've just got to get him on the field and use him in a lot of different ways. And perhaps he's just going to turn into a true defensive chess piece for Raheem Morris. I like the idea of him being in this defense. I think that the James Pierce Jr. trade-up is very interesting because, to me, it is still an extension of what they did last year. Now, I don't think they regret taking Michael Penix. Very clearly, it didn't end up working out with Kirk Cousins, and can you imagine where this team would be right now if they didn't have Michael Penix? So I don't think that they regret doing that. However, by not taking a pass rusher last year at number 8 overall, when you desperately needed one, and there were some good ones in this class to choose from, we then saw them try to make up for that desperately by picking defensive linemen with their next 3 selections in Ruka Rororo, Braylon Trice, and Brandon Dorlus last season. This almost makes it feel like, to me, this is still an extension of, okay, we are making up for going quarterback at number 8 when we should have. I don't want to say, again, should have is the wrong word. I don't mean to use the word should have because they don't regret the Penix pick. But they've had to now throw so many resources at their defensive line and at the pass rushing positions because they haven't been able to acquire the talent that they've needed. And they've been a very poor pass rush team over the last couple of seasons, and they don't want to be this upcoming year. So just very interesting for me to think about it like that. Still needing pass rushers so desperately this year, just like they did last year. And it's a little bit of a continued ripple effect with what they did with number 8 overall and Michael Penix Jr. last year. Xavier Watts, though, dude, I couldn't love it anymore. Him and Jesse Bates are going to be a sick duo.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talk about Jesse Bates is already one of the best ball hawks in the league, and now you add Watts into that, and it gives them the ability with Watts and his ability to play single high for them to mix up the defense a little bit more. If they want to go too high with both of them back there, if they want to go one high, if they want to mess around and get more guys in there, they want to get Billy Bowman in there, you're going to have a lot of guys who are hunting the football in Atlanta, and they haven't had that enough lately.